The galaxy was calm, but not for long. At the farthest edge of the known stars, a strange signal appeared. It was weak at first, just a flicker of data, hidden between the background noise of space. The Galactic Empire, which ruled over 1,000 worlds, noticed it when one of their deep space listening stations caught the pulse. At first, the operators laughed, thinking it was nothing more than static or the dying echo of a collapsed star. But then the signal repeated, and this time it carried a pattern. A code, clear and precise. The scientists of the Empire rushed to study it. They had seen many strange things in the galaxy, messages from dead civilizations, coded threats from rival empires, even signals from lost fleets drifting in space. But this one was different. The numbers were clean, sharper than anything they had ever seen. They carried mathematics far beyond the Empire's highest knowledge. Equations that bent the laws of physics, theories that their greatest scholars could not solve. The more they tried to understand, the more impossible it became. In the great halls of the Imperial Science Academy, scholars gathered around massive hollow screens. They argued, they shouted, they whispered. Some claimed the signal came from the old ones, a race that had vanished before the Empire was born. Others said it was a trick, a weapon meant to confuse, but deep down, all of them felt the same cold truth. This signal was not from any species they knew. It was something new, and it was something dangerous. The news reached the Imperial Senate. Politicians sat in their golden seats, looking pale as the data was shown. The signal contained designs, schematics for machines that should not exist, engines that could bend space in ways the Empire thought were only myths, weapons that could tear through entire planets without leaving debris, defenses that could turn fleets into dust. The Empire had built its power on fear and control. But here was proof of something greater, something beyond comprehension. An emergency council was called by the Emperor himself. The chamber was silent except for the echo of his voice. Who sends this signal? Which empire dares to challenge us? He demanded. No one could answer. The star map showed only a small, unimportant system at the edge of the galaxy, a single blue planet, surrounded by a few moons and barren rocks. The Empire had ignored it for centuries, believing it to hold no value. Now that forgotten corner of the galaxy seemed ready to shake the entire throne. The Emperor's admirals urged him to send fleets at once. They spoke of crushing this mystery before it grew into a threat. But the scientists begged for patience. They wanted to study more. To understand before striking, the Emperor, caught between fear and pride, agreed to send only a scout fleet, a small group of warships meant to investigate quietly. It was supposed to be a simple mission, but in truth, it was the first step into the unknown. Far away, on the edge of that small blue planet, the humans watched. They had sent the signal on purpose. It was not a cry for help. Not a mistake, it was a message, a test, a warning. The humans knew the Empire was listening. They knew the giants of the galaxy would not ignore such knowledge, but they were ready. For years, they had lived in silence, hiding their true strength. Now they had chosen to reveal a piece of it, just enough to cause fear, because humans did not want to be hunted. They wanted the galaxy to understand. Earth was no longer weak. The Imperial scout ships began their journey, engines roaring, weapons armed, banners shining with the mark of the Empire. To them, this was only another mission, another chance to prove their might. But none of them understood what they were flying into. The humans were waiting, and their technology was not merely powerful. It was something the galaxy had never seen. In the dark of space, silence stretched. The signal continued to pulse across the stars. Every empire, every spy network, every wandering ship had now heard it. Whispers spread through the galaxy. Who had sent this impossible message? The name of humans was not yet known, but soon it would be, and when it was, the galaxy would never be the same again. The Empire believed it was sending hunters, but in truth, it had just stepped into the path of something far greater, something that would not bow, would not break, would not stop. The signal was not just a call, it was the beginning of fear, and the first tremor of a storm that would change the stars forever. The scout fleet of the Empire cut through the void like a line of steel daggers, their engines glowing bright in the endless black. 10 warships, each one larger than a human city, carried thousands of crew, soldiers, and machines of war. To the Empire, this was a small force, a hand of shadow sent to silence a whisper at the edge of the galaxy. But to those who watched, it was already the beginning of history. Inside the flagship, Admiral Serac stood with his hands behind his back. He had fought dozens of battles and crushed whole colonies that dared defy the throne. To him, this mission felt insulting. Why send him a master of war? To chase a ghost signal from an unmarked world? His crew laughed when they saw the star maps, a blue planet, insignificant and alone. The Empire had ignored it for centuries, surely. There was nothing there except dirt and savages. But when the fleet dropped from faster-than-light travel, silence fell across every deck. Before them floated a ship unlike any they had ever seen. It was small, almost fragile-looking. Like a silver blade drifting in space, no massive armor. No terrifying cannons visible, just a smooth, sleek design that seemed to shimmer in the starlight. It looked weak, harmless even, and yet the scanners screamed with impossible readings. "Admiral, the energy signature is..." "Wrong," the science officer whispered. "It exceeds all known limits, by a factor of 10, maybe more." Serac narrowed his eyes. Machines did not lie, and yet he refused to believe. "No ship that size can hold such power," he said coldly. "Target it?" Fire warning shots. The order spread across the fleet. Giant cannons turned, humming with destructive power. They unleashed a storm of plasma and fire. The void lit up as if stars were being born. But the human ship did not move. It did not dodge, it did not defend. The blast vanished before they could touch it. Like stones falling into a bottomless ocean, confusion spread through the Imperial crews. Shouts, alarms, disbelief. Admiral Serac clenched his fists. "Fire again, full power!" he roared. This time the fleet unleashed everything. Missiles, plasma beams, railgun rounds. Enough to erase a continent. Yet the result was the same. The human ship remained untouched. Calm. Silent. As if the Empire's weapons were no more than a breeze against steel. Then it moved. Not fast, not violent. Just a shift, smooth and graceful. And with that single motion, every Imperial ship went dark. Engines dead, weapons offline, life support frozen. The mighty war fleet of the Empire hung in space. Helpless, not destroyed, but silenced. The crews gasped as lights flickered. Panic rose as soldiers realized their ships were now coffins drifting in the void. On the bridge of the flagship, Serac's voice trembled for the first time in years. "What? What have they done?" He whispered. The science officer's hands shook as he read the data. They sent a pulse, Admiral, not a weapon, not an attack, just a command, and our ships obeyed. A message blinked across every Imperial screen. It was not in the language of the Empire, but it was translated instantly by their systems. 3 simple words. "Go back now." The silence that followed was heavier than any weapon. The crew stared, their pride shattered, their fear rising. They had faced pirates, rebels, monsters from beyond the stars, but never had they been so powerless. Never had a single ship brought an entire Imperial fleet to its knees without firing a single shot. Admiral Serac gritted his teeth, fury burning in his chest. But even he felt the cold truth settle deep inside. This was not weakness, this was not luck. This was power beyond anything the Empire had ever known. And whoever controlled that silver ship had just given them mercy. A warning, not a slaughter. The fleet limped back into faster-than-light travel. Engines slowly restored only after the human ship allowed it. No one spoke during the journey home, but in every heart, the same question burned: who are they? What kind of beings can do this? When they returned, the Empire did not cheer. The Senate did not praise them. Instead, whispers spread like fire. An entire fleet silenced by a single unknown vessel. Scientists demanded answers. Generals demanded war. But all Admiral Serac could say was this: "They are not like us, they are not like anyone." And far away, orbiting the small blue world called Earth, the human ship drifted back into the shadows. Its mission complete, the signal had been sent. The warning delivered. The galaxy now knew humans were no longer silent, and the Empire, for the first time in centuries, felt fear. The hunters had found their prey, only to discover they were standing before something far greater, something that would not bow, something beyond comprehension. The Senate chamber of the Galactic Empire was built to inspire fear. Tall pillars of black stone reached high above, and golden light spilled from crystal lamps. Here emperors had crushed rebellions, signed treaties, and declared wars that shaped whole galaxies. But on this day, the chamber felt heavy with silence. Every senator, every general, every scholar sat in their place, eyes fixed on the trembling holograms before them. The report from Admiral Serac's fleet had spread like wildfire. 10 Imperial warships, each armed with weapons strong enough to wipe out planets. had been silenced by a single unknown vessel. Not destroyed, not even damaged, just switched off. Like toys in the hand of a child, the survivors returned alive, but their pride had died in the void. Now the Senate wanted answers, and answers were not coming. One senator rose, her voice sharp. "This is a trick, nothing more. Some outlaw kingdom built this phantom ship to frighten us. We must strike back at once. Show the galaxy that the Empire bows to no one." Her words echoed through the chamber, and many senators pounded their fists in agreement, but others remained still, their faces pale. They had seen the data, the impossible readings, the three simple words sent across every Imperial screen. Go back now. A scientist stepped forward, robes trailing across the floor. He was old, his eyes tired, but his voice carried the weight of truth. "This was no trick," he said. "The energy recorded cannot be faked. That ship used no weapon we know of, no shield we can understand. It gave a command to our fleets, and the fleets obeyed, I tell you now, senators. This was not technology, this was mastery." The chamber stirred uneasily. The Empire had ruled for centuries, feared across the stars for its fleets, yet the thought of a younger, unknown species wielding such power was unthinkable. The Emperor himself, sitting high on the throne of obsidian, leaned forward. His voice was calm but sharp as a blade. "Then who are they?" "Name them," the scientist bowed. The signal came from a small world on the edge of our maps, a blue planet called Earth. It has never been considered important. Its people are young, still new to the stars. The chamber burst into laughter and anger at once. Young, primitive. How could such a world create technology that even the Empire could not comprehend? But then the laughter died, because deep inside every senator, every general knew the truth. Youth did not matter, power mattered, and this small world had just shaken the throne of the galaxy. Spies were sent in secret. Agents slipped through shadows. Seeking knowledge of this Earth, they returned with whispers that made the Senate shiver. Humans were not an ancient race, not blessed by the gods, not born with superior minds. They were fragile, short-lived, reckless, and yet in their short time, they had built machines that touched the fabric of reality. They had faced wars on their own planet, nearly destroying themselves. But instead of falling, they had risen. Every struggle had made them sharper, harder, faster. Where other species relied on tradition, humans relied on change. Where others accepted limits, humans broke them. One spy told of human weapons that were not fired but thought. One whisper spoke of ships that could vanish and appear again, skipping across the stars like stones on water. Another claimed humans had built engines that could tear holes in time itself. The Senate argued, some called it madness. Lies meant to spread fear. Others believed every word, and their eyes filled with dread. The Emperor stood, his cloak sweeping across the marble floor. "Enough," he said. "We are the Empire. We do not cower before children. If humans wish to test us, we shall test them in return. We will send not scouts, but fleets, not warnings, but fire." His words filled the chamber with thunderous applause. But beneath the cheers, beneath the pride, there was unease. Even the most loyal senators felt it, the cold grip of fear, because they all knew one truth. The humans had not killed Serac's fleet. They could have easily. They had chosen mercy. They had chosen warning instead of war, and mercy from the strong was far more terrifying than wrath. Outside the Senate, rumors spread through the Empire's worlds. Soldiers whispered of the ghost ship that silenced whole fleets. Merchants spoke of a blue planet rising to power, and on the streets of the capital, common citizens looked up at the sky and asked the question no one dared answer. What if the Empire is no longer the strongest? Meanwhile, in the shadows of space, humans watched. Their signal had reached its target. Their warning had been heard. Now the galaxy knew their name, Earth. The hunters had turned into the hunted, and in the grand halls of power, the mighty Empire had begun to tremble. The storm was only beginning, and the galaxy was not ready for what came next. The drums of war echoed across the galaxy, though no sound carried in the void. The Empire had made its choice, and it was not peace. From the heart of its capital world, orders spread like fire through the networks of command. Every admiral, every captain, every soldier was told the same words: prepare the fleets. The Senate had shouted for vengeance, the Emperor had demanded obedience, and so the Empire gathered its strength. Across the stars, shipyards thundered with activity. Titanic warships slid from their docks, armored with steel thicker than mountains. Engines the size of cities roared as they were awakened. The Empire wanted not a warning strike, but a lesson, a show of power so great that no world, not even this mysterious Earth, would dare challenge them again. At the edge of the galaxy, hidden in the shadows of asteroids, the humans were already watching. They knew the Empire's response before the orders had even been given. Humans understood pride, understood fear, and they had planned for both. They had not built vast fleets to match the Empire ship for ship. No, their strength was in something else: speed, precision, and the strange new science that no other race dared touch. In secret hangars, the human warships waited. They were smaller, sleeker, nothing like the towering dreadnoughts of the Empire. To an Imperial eye, they looked weak, but every curve of their hull carried hidden purpose. Every line was tuned for speed, every system crafted for war. They were warships of fire, ships that could strike and vanish before the enemy even fired back, ships powered by engines that twisted the fabric of space itself. When the two forces finally met, the void lit with fury. The Empire's grand fleet stretched for thousands of kilometers. Hundreds of massive battleships and carriers surrounded by swarms of escorts, their weapons charged, their banners bright. It was the kind of sight that had broken empires and crushed rebellions for centuries. The admiral stood proud, believing this day would be remembered as the fall of Earth. Then the human fleet arrived. Only a handful of ships emerged from the black. Not hundreds, not thousands, just 20. The Imperial crews laughed, mocking the foolishness of such a challenge. But their laughter turned to silence as the battle began. The human ships moved first. They didn't advance like a fleet, they flowed. One blink they were here, the next blink they were gone, jumping across the battlefield in arcs of bending light. Imperial sensors struggled, alarms screamed. By the time the fleet locked on, the humans had already struck. One Imperial battleship shuddered as its cannons went dead. Another spun out of formation, engines burning with fire it could not control. Yet not a single hull was destroyed. The humans did not kill, they disabled. Every strike was precise, cutting through defenses as if the ships were made of paper. The Empire fired back, unleashing storms of plasma and missiles. The void shook with fire, but nothing touched the human ships. They slipped through barrages as if the attacks were moving in slow motion. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Admiral Varos stared in disbelief. His fleet was massive, his weapons unmatched, and yet his ships were falling one by one, not destroyed but humiliated. It was worse than death. It was proof undeniable and terrifying that the Empire was no longer the strongest. Why do they hold back? His second-in-command whispered, "They could destroy us all." Varos did not answer, because he already knew the humans were showing mercy, the very thing the Empire had never shown in all its history. Across the battlefield, the disabled Imperial ships floated like broken statues. Only a few still fought, their captains refusing to surrender. The human fleet finally revealed its voice. A single transmission, carried across every Imperial channel. The words were calm, steady, but sharp as knives. "We do not seek war, but we will not bow, leave Earth in peace, or face the fire you cannot survive." The silence that followed was heavier than any weapon. On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Varos clenched his fists. He wanted to order another attack to prove the Empire's might. But the sight of hundreds of disabled ships around him choked the words from his throat. If this was what 20 human ships could do, what would 100 do? What would 1,000? The order was never given. The battle ended not with destruction, but with shame. The Empire's grand fleet turned away. Limping back into the void, the humans let them leave. Their own ships fading back into shadows, the message was clear. Earth did not fear the Empire, and if pushed again, Earth would not hold back. News of the battle spread faster than light. Worlds whispered of the warships of fire. Tales grew of human ships that danced through weapons and struck like lightning. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy dared to ask, has the Empire met its match? Far away on Earth, human commanders stood in silence. They did not celebrate, they did not boast, they only prepared, because they knew the Empire would not stop. And the next battle would not be fought in shadows. It would be fought at the very heart of power, and humanity was ready. The Empire could not accept defeat, but whispers of it spread faster than their ships could travel. Every world, every trading hub, every pirate den spoke of the battle that had shaken the stars. 1,000 Imperial warships silenced by only 20. It was a story that no propaganda could erase, and in the marble halls of the Senate, fear grew like a shadow. The Emperor demanded answers. How could humans, a young and fragile race from a forgotten blue world, wield such impossible power? Spies were sent in greater numbers, slipping into human channels, stealing fragments of data. What they found was not what the Empire expected. It was stranger, more terrifying, and more human. The first reports revealed that Earth had once been on the edge of extinction, not from alien invasions or cosmic storms, but from themselves. Wars had scarred their lands, famine had tested their will, and plagues had nearly broken their spirit. Other species would have died, others would have surrendered to fate. But not humans. Every time they fell, they rose again. Every disaster forced them to adapt. Every loss sharpened their minds. The spies whispered of a time when humans split the atom, a power that nearly destroyed their own world. But instead of perishing, they turned it into fuel. They built engines that bent the laws of physics, weapons that could fire faster than thought, and shields that were not shields at all, but entire rewrites of reality. One senator slammed his fist against the table when the truth was spoken aloud. They are not strong because of peace, they are strong because of struggle. Every scar they carry has given them new tools. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some screamed that the humans must be destroyed at once. Others warned that to fight them would be suicide. But through it all, the Emperor sat silent, his eyes dark. Meanwhile, among the humans, there was no celebration. The victory over the Imperial fleet was not seen as triumph. It was seen as survival. Commanders walked the silent halls of Earth's underground bunkers, their faces grim, their voices steady. They remembered the history that had shaped them. Every war, every near extinction, every desperate invention. They did not build their technology for conquest. They built it so they would never be slaves, never be hunted again. A human scientist, her voice calm, explained to her students in one hidden facility. Our ancestors lived in fear. They feared the dark, they feared hunger. They feared each other, but fear became fuel. They learned to light the dark, to grow food in wastelands, to make peace after war. And when the stars called, they carried the same fire into the void. The Empire's spies reported these words back, and the Senate fell into silence. This was the human secret, not luck, not divine blessing, but a will that refused to break. They built impossible machines not to dominate the galaxy, but to ensure no one could dominate them. That truth unsettled the Empire more than any weapon. For how could you defeat a people who were shaped by survival itself? The Emperor finally rose, his voice echoing across the chamber. They are not gods, they are not demons, they are people. But they are people who have walked through fire, and we cannot let such fire spread. His words carried both fear and pride. The Empire would not stop, even if it meant tearing itself apart back on Earth. Human commanders intercepted fragments of Imperial transmissions. They knew what was coming. The Empire would not accept warning after warning. They would return with fury, with their greatest fleets and humans prepared, not for glory, not for conquest, but for survival. Because history had taught them one truth: mercy was rare, and freedom must be defended at all costs. In the deep black of space, the first sparks of the next war already began to glow. Imperial engineers forged massive war machines. Human scientists tuned engines that bent the very skeleton of the universe. Both sides prepared, but only one side carried the memory of near extinction. Only one side carried the hunger that had turned fear into fire. And so the galaxy stood at the edge of something new. Not just a war, but a clash of truths. An empire built on pride against a species built on survival. The spies who returned with human secrets could not sleep. Their dreams filled with images of fragile creatures standing against storms, and winning, they whispered a single line that spread through the empire like a curse. Humans are not powerful because they are old. They are powerful because they never stopped fighting. The Senate ignored the warning. The Emperor sharpened his plans, and Earth waited. For the storm they knew was coming. The stars above the imperial capital burned like a crown of fire, but even their light felt dim against the storm that was coming. The Senate halls were restless, voices loud with fear and pride. The humiliations at the edge of the galaxy could not be forgotten. The Emperor stood before them and gave only one command: unleash the core armada. The core armada was the pride of the Empire, the greatest fleet ever assembled, forged across centuries of conquest. Its ships were not patrol vessels or border fleets. These were the monsters of legend. Each dreadnought was larger than a moon, bristling with weapons that could burn oceans away. Carriers the size of mountains carried endless squadrons. At the center, the Emperor's flagship, the Eternal Flame, stood like a god of war. The people cheered when the Armada left orbit. They believed the humans would finally be crushed, that no handful of strange vessels could stand against the Empire's full power. But in the dark between stars, the humans were already waiting. They knew the core Armada would come. They had read the pride of empires in history books. They understood that fear makes tyrants reckless. And so they prepared a ship not meant to match the Armada, but to end it. The Leviathan. It was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Not a warship. Not a fortress, it was a paradox given form. Its hull shimmered like liquid metal, shifting as though alive. Its engines did not roar, they bent space itself. Where other ships traveled through stars. The Leviathan slid between moments. It carried no army, only a single crew. But it held inside it the combined desperation and genius of all humanity's struggles. The Leviathan was not built for conquest. It was built to make sure humanity could never again be cornered. When the core Armada entered the system of Earth, the void shook with their arrival. Thousands of ships, endless rows of guns, a wall of fire and steel meant to erase a planet. Imperial soldiers cheered, believing no force could stand against them. And then the Leviathan arrived. It did not emerge from faster-than-light travel like other ships. It unfolded from the void, as if the universe itself had been hiding it. One ship against thousands, but the silence it carried was louder than any roar. The first volley came from the Empire, a storm of fire so vast that the night sky turned white. Planets in nearby systems felt the shockwaves. It was destruction enough to erase civilizations. And when the light cleared, the Leviathan still stood, untouched, its hull glowing softly as if the fury of the Armada had been nothing more than rain. Then the Leviathan struck, not with cannons, not with missiles, but with something the galaxy had no name for. A ripple spread across the battlefield. Imperial ships twisted, their engines howling as time itself bent. Weapons misfired, shields collapsed, entire squadrons drifted helplessly. Caught in a storm they could not fight. The admirals screamed for order. But there was no order against a ship that did not obey the laws of reality. On the Eternal Flame, the Emperor himself watched in silence. His mighty Armada, his greatest weapon, was breaking before his eyes. One ship was tearing apart his legacy, not with slaughter, but with control. The humans could have destroyed them all, but instead they disabled, they humbled. They showed the Empire that their pride meant nothing. Across the fleet, fear grew. Captains who had once believed themselves gods now begged for mercy, and through every Imperial channel came a voice. It was calm, steady, human. This is your last warning. We do not seek your empire, but if you force us, we will end it, stand down or be forgotten. The Emperor's hands shook as he gripped his throne. Never before had anyone dared speak to him in such a way. But the evidence was before his eyes. Thousands of ships powerless against one, and for the first time in his reign, the Emperor felt small. The Battle of the Core was not a battle at all. It was a revelation. The galaxy watched as the unstoppable force of the Empire met the unshakable will of humanity. And the Empire lost not because humans destroyed them, but because humans had stepped beyond comprehension. They fought with weapons that were not weapons, engines that were not engines. They fought with an idea the Empire could not understand, that survival was stronger than conquest. When the Armada limped away, broken and humiliated, the galaxy erupted in whispers. Legends were born in a single night. Stories of the Leviathan spread from star to star, and everywhere beings asked the same question. If one human ship could do this, what could an entire fleet do? On Earth, the crew of the Leviathan stood in silence. They were not gods, not demons, they were human. And they knew the war was not finished. The Empire would return. The Emperor's pride would not allow surrender. But humanity had shown the truth. They were not prey, they were not weak, they were the storm. And the galaxy would never forget it. The throne room of the Empire had never been so quiet. For centuries it had been a place of fear and command. Generals, admirals, senators, all had bowed here. The Emperor's word was law, his fleets his iron hand. But now the silence carried something new. Doubt the core Armada had returned in shame. Thousands of ships, the pride of the Empire, had been broken by one human vessel, not destroyed, not erased, but humbled. And that humiliation burned deeper than any loss. The throne itself seemed to tremble as the Emperor sat rigid, His jaw clenched, he could not accept it. Yet he could not deny it. The Senate gathered in fearful whispers. Some demanded peace, others screamed for vengeance. But beneath their words was a single truth. The Empire had cracked. If the humans could stand against the greatest fleet in history, then perhaps the Empire was not unshakable. And once such an idea spreads, it is impossible to kill. The Emperor rose, his cloak sweeping like a shadow across the chamber. His eyes burned as he spoke. They are young. They are reckless. They are not gods. They are not invincible. We will not kneel to them, his voice thundered. But it did not silence the unease, because deep down, even he knew what had happened at the core was more than a battle. It was a shift. Admirals who had once obeyed without hesitation now whispered in private. If humans could crush fleets with a single ship, then perhaps loyalty to the throne was no longer safety. Senators who once bragged of the Empire's eternal power now sat in silence. Merchants spread rumors through the trade routes. Common citizens looked up at the stars at night and wondered if their rulers were lying. The Empire was not just losing control of the battlefield. It was losing control of belief far away on Earth. Humans understood this better than anyone. They knew they had not won a war. They had struck the throne itself. And striking the throne was more dangerous than destroying fleets. The Leviathan returned to its hidden dock. Its crew silent, they did not cheer, they did not boast, because they knew pride was the weapon of the Empire, and pride makes rulers desperate. The human commander stood before his officers, his voice calm but hard. The Emperor will not forgive this. He will not accept that we are beyond him. He will fight harder. He will fight to prove the galaxy wrong, and that makes him more dangerous than ever. The humans began preparing again, not with larger fleets, not with more weapons, but with plans, strategies, secrets hidden in the folds of reality itself. For they knew this war was not about ships and cannons. It was about the mind of the galaxy. If they could show the truth, that the Empire was not eternal, then the galaxy itself would rise. Back in the palace, the Emperor sat alone on his throne. He stared at the stars beyond the great crystal windows. He remembered the moment the Leviathan had appeared, one ship against thousands, yet the humans had spoken calmly. They had shown mercy, and that mercy haunted him more than any destruction, for he had built his rule on fear, and now he feared them. His most trusted advisor approached carefully. "My Emperor, the fleets are afraid. The Senate is restless if we do not act soon. Cracks will spread." The Emperor's hands gripped the throne tighter. "I will not let them see weakness. We will shatter these humans, even if it means burning the stars themselves." But as he spoke, another voice grew across the galaxy. The voice of rumor, the voice of story. Tales of fragile humans standing against the strongest empire. Tales of ships that bent space. Of a will that could not be broken, and in those tales, the galaxy saw something it had not seen in centuries. Hope small worlds began to whisper. If humans can resist, maybe we can too. Slave races chained under the Empire's flag looked at the sky with new eyes. Rebel groups, once scattered and broken, stirred again. The Empire's shadow no longer felt unbreakable. The Emperor did not yet understand that the true battle was already lost. Not in the void, not in the clash of fleets, but in the hearts of the galaxy's people. For fear was no longer one-sided. The Empire feared humans, and that fear made their throne shake on Earth. The humans prepared for what came next. They did not call themselves saviors. They did not call themselves conquerors. They called themselves survivors, and survival, they knew, was stronger than empire. The Emperor sat in his throne of obsidian, the weight of centuries pressing down. He looked strong, he looked eternal, but inside, cracks spread like veins of fire. Because he had seen the truth with his own eyes. Humans were not like other races. Where others saw death, humans saw challenge. Where others accepted limits, humans broke them. And where others ruled through fear, humans ruled through defiance. The throne of the Empire was not broken yet, but it was shaking. And all across the stars, the galaxy waited. For the moment when it would finally fall, the galaxy held its breath. The core armada's defeat was still fresh, and yet the Emperor of the Galactic Empire refused to bow. His throne stood tall, his banners still waved across 1,000 worlds. But in the silence between stars, whispers grew louder. Whispers of Earth, whispers of humans. The Emperor summoned his greatest minds, his wisest generals, and demanded answers, but none came. Every theory collapsed against the truth. Humans were not supposed to exist this way. They were too young, too fragile, too reckless, and yet they had created power beyond comprehension. It was an insult to the Empire's pride. It was a threat to its control. It was a mystery that broke the very order of the galaxy. So the Emperor did what desperate rulers always do. He demanded one last confrontation, not in secret battlefields, not on the edges of forgotten space, but in the open heart of the Empire itself. If humans dared to stand, they would stand before him. The throne would not be challenged by whispers, but by truth, and so the stage was set. The humans did not run. They came not with fleets, not with armies, but with one ship, the Leviathan. The galaxy watched as it glided into the Emperor's system, its silver hull gleaming like a shard of light in endless dark. It was not the arrival of an invader. It was the arrival of a reckoning. The Emperor stood on the command deck of the Eternal Flame, his most powerful vessel. The air trembled with the weight of his anger. Around him floated the last loyal ships of his empire. Hundreds still, though fewer than before, and across from them one ship. A silence more terrifying than 1,000 cannons. The Emperor's voice carried across the stars. You are children. You are fragile. You dare humiliate the greatest empire in history, but today it ends. Bow before me, or be erased. The human commander's reply was calm, not arrogant, not mocking, just steady. Like stone against storm, we are not here to bow. We are not here to conquer. We are here to stand. Your empire believes strength is eternal, but strength built on fear always falls. The Emperor roared, and his ships unleashed fire, a storm brighter than suns. The Leviathan vanished into light and shadow. Weapons bent away. Time itself seemed to fold. When the fire cleared, the human ship still stood, untouched, unmoved, and the galaxy knew the end had come. The Leviathan struck once, not with destruction but with revelation. Every imperial screen, every sensor, every channel filled with images, the truth of humans, their history, their wars, their survival, the sight of fragile beings who had fought extinction 100 times and still endured. The Senate saw it, the soldiers saw it, the citizens saw it, and they realized something the Emperor never could. Humans were not powerful because of weapons. They were powerful because they never stopped fighting. On the Eternal Flame, the Emperor sank back into his throne. His eyes wide, his pride crumbling, he demanded to know. His voice breaking, "What are you? Gods, demons?" The human commander's answer came like a blade of truth. "We are just people, but we dream, we rise. And we refuse to break, that is why we are beyond you." Silence spread. The Imperial fleet lowered its weapons. One by one, not from defeat but from awe, they had seen the truth. The galaxy had seen the truth. The throne of the Empire cracked, not with an explosion but with understanding. The humans did not destroy the Emperor. They did not burn his worlds, they simply left. The Leviathan faded back into the stars, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed. In the days that followed, the Senate fractured. Worlds that had lived in fear for centuries began to rise. Slaves whispered of freedom. Rebels lit fires in the dark. The Empire still stood, but it was no longer eternal. Its shadow no longer infinite, because everyone now knew there was something greater. A truth that spread faster than fleets, a story that no weapon could kill, and in that story was a single line, repeated again and again. Human technology is not merely powerful. It is beyond comprehension. On Earth, the people looked up at the stars. They did not see conquest, they saw survival. They knew the war was not truly over, but they also knew they had changed the galaxy. Not as rulers, not as gods, but as humans. The Emperor sat alone in his throne, his empire trembling around him. He had demanded fear but received awe. He had demanded obedience but received doubt, and for the first time in his reign, he understood that fear could not rule forever. The galaxy was awake now. The humans had lit a fire that would not die, and though the stars were endless, their message was clear. No empire lasts forever, no throne is eternal. But the will to rise, the will to fight, the will to survive, that was something even the galaxy itself could not comprehend.